Will he stay or will he go? There are growing reports from major news outlets in the United States that suggest President Donald Trump is mulling walking away from the trilateral trade pact between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. We're going to start, of course, with a heartbreaker of a gold medal match for the Canadian women's hockey team. In that vein, they lost an incredibly well-fought game to the Americans at a time when the old rivalry has taken on new meaning. It's been over a year of a trade war now, launched on Canada by U.S. President Donald Trump. I was just referencing some brand new reporting today from the New York Times, echoing reports last week from Bloomberg that Trump is seriously considering walking away from CUSMA in an effort to excise more concessions from Canada. Francois-Philippe Champagne is the Minister of Finance. Hi, Minister. Pleasure to welcome you back to our program. Thank you very much for making the time.
Thank you very much for having me.
I know you've made a very significant announcement on extortion today. I have a number of questions for you on that. But because you oversee the economy, I just have to start on some new reporting from the New York Times that seems to confirm what last week Bloomberg wrote on the trade file, most specifically quoting the USTR as saying that Donald Trump is, quote unquote, half inclined to leave CUSMA. Has that ever been communicated to your government directly?
Well, I said I've not seen the reporting. As you know, I was pretty busy this morning with a significant announcement, which is the follow the money strategy to fight extortion. What I can say, listen, we've been seeing representatives from the White House most recently in Davos. You know, they know that we are committed to be at the table whenever the parties are ready to negotiate. I think they understand as well the importance of what CUSMA has been for North America. I mean, I often say sometimes it's been lost in translation that Canada is one of their largest clients. In a sense, we bought more from the U.S. than China, Japan, and the U.K. combined. That trade is both ways, that 2/3 of the states of the United States of Canada is the first export market. So I think what we need to do as Canadians, and I think Minister Leblanc did that very well in Mexico recently, and the Prime Minister, is to always impress on our colleagues, and I certainly do that when I talk to Secretary Besson, of the importance of CUSMA for the competitiveness in North America. So we'll continue to make the point and keep telling them that we're ready at the table whenever the parties want to review CUSMA.
Are you worried as Minister of Finance when you hear, comments or reporting like this?
Well, I just came, I went to Brussels yesterday, and what I can tell you is that Canada was invited to join the finance minister in Europe, what they call the Eurogroup, and our European friends wanted to have a transatlantic voice at the table. It just tells the impact that Canada has in the world today. We have what the world wants, whether it's come from critical mineral, from energy, from natural resources. So we will always be working with our American friends, but at the same time, they have to understand that if they want less of Canadian goods, we have our Asian partners who want to do more with Canada. I was just talking to the Japanese finance ministers recently. I can assure you, coming back from Europe, it's the first time I'm told that a Canadian finance minister is invited at the Eurogroup as a lead speaker. So it just tells you how the world is changing, how the world has changed in a few months. We will continue, obviously, to have the United States as our major trading partner, but at the same time, we are diversifying, we are becoming more resilient, we are taking back control of our Canadian economy, and I think we have seen that the Canadian economy is more resilient than many have expected.
Let's talk rather about the announcement that you made today around tackling extortion, which is really, I think, for Canadians watching out of outside of certain urban centers, they may not be aware of that it's increased over the last decade 300%, 500% in British Columbia. The Premier of British Columbia, the Mayor of Surrey, most recently asking for a declaration of emergency over the issue. Your announcement today very much focused on pursuing sort of like the financial aspect of all of this, but the press release doesn't really identify, who is doing most of the extorting. Why is that?
Well, you're quite right. I mean, we're doubling down. My message is that enough is enough. We're doubling down on our efforts. We're putting forward a follow the money strategy and measures. This is what is the most effective. This has been even a topic at the G7 when I was in the United States talking with Treasury Department, FBI officials. What we're doing here, or what we've announced, is unprecedented. We're going to be putting what we call FinTrack, which is an agency of the Government of Canada, boots on the ground. These officers, which have the tools in order to detect financial transactions which would be suspicious, would be embedded with various police force across the country. You're quite right. It's in selected parts of the country. I'm in Mississauga today. We've seen Brampton, a bit in Alberta, certainly in Surrey, in British Columbia. So we want to make our communities safer. We are doing something which is, you know, from the book of best practices, what we've done in fentanyl, but it's the first time that I've ordered the deployment of FinTrack officers to be embedded with police force in selected regions of the country, so that, you know, they'll be able to work with them, with our, you know, financial institution across the country. They'll have a number of tools to detect, deter, and prevent these kind of crimes, which you're quite right, we've seen a large increase. I mean, the Deputy Police Chief of Peel put it this way. He said it's kind of high reward and low risk, and therefore we want to change that equation. We want to send a very strong signal to the criminals that you're not going to be able to hide with stolen money. We're coming after you. All these agencies are going to work together with financial institutions, police force, RCMP. We said to the communities that this has been affecting families, workers, small businesses in particular, and this needs to stop. So we're doubling down our efforts, and if we need to do more, to put more tools in the toolbox, we'll do so.
My challenge, Minister, respectfully, is around if you are and your government is actually sending that message. What we do know from the mouths of the RCMP as recently as October, I believe, of 2024, was that the level of extortion tied to the government of India, in particular, through, let's say, the Bishnoi gang, for example, is quite high. Your government is pursuing a very different relationship with India. This new government is pursuing a very different relationship with India. The press release doesn't talk about the culpability of the Indian government, even in an alleged fashion, characterizing it as alleged. It doesn't talk about that at all. How are you going to solve the problem if you're not clearly identifying what's at the root of it?
Well, we're going to be making some intelligence assessment public. You see, there's 5 measures we're taking. Deploying liaison officers is one. Having this partnership on extortion with financial institutions, so we bring people. I would just say, you would appreciate, Vashi, I cannot go into operational details because obviously this is an operation that we'll be conducting in selected parts of the country. Talking to international partners with the RCMP and others. I was with the Guardia di Finanza recently in Italy. We certainly have contact with the Serious Fraud Office in London. You're quite right. There's a transnational nature of this crime, but there's also a very domestic one, without getting into intelligence details, which are linked to gangs, criminals, which are operating domestically. So the measures we're taking today, and you don't need to take it from me. If you listen to the comments of the Deputy Police Chief in Peel, he would tell you that this is quite unprecedented, because we're taking measures, very concrete measures that will help them in their investigation, because what you need today is financial intelligence to go after economic crime. That's what you need. You act on the basis of intelligence. You can track where the money is going. You can track who holds these accounts. You can track how they try to transfer that money. And that's why I'm saying we're going to make the life of criminals very difficult, because we are united in our action to deter crime and certainly extortion.
And certainly, Minister, I take your point on what the Chief of Police and law enforcement is saying in support of the new measures, and I wouldn't want to detract from that, but I also have to take note of what sick Canadians who are being targeted by these transnational groups are feeling as well, how they feel, and they have communicated on multiple instances, including the most recent visit of a top Indian government official involved in public safety to Canada, about how they feel your government, in the name of trade diversification, is sacrificing their safety.
Well, I can certainly tell you that what we're announcing this morning was welcomed by all the partners. We had financial institutions, RCMP, Peel Police. I had a chance to exchange with the commissioner of the RCMP, the mayor of Surrey, Patrick Brown, the mayor of Brampton. He said, when you're following the money, you're weakening the threat in a way. And that's exactly what we're doing. This is really the best practice you've seen at the G7. We're working with our international partner. And basically, we're helping police of jurisdiction, law enforcement agents, the brave men and women who wear the uniform, who are at the forefront. What they said is, they said to us, we need more tools. Deploying faint track officers embedded with police force is a first. And I think they welcome that because they know that the only way, or at least one of the most effective way to get after these criminals is to focus on where the money is going. They don't operate on the basis of ideology. They're just there for money. And therefore, there will be no place to hide for criminals with stolen money. We'll be able to detract their operation, disrupt their operation, and the financial institution will be helping as well. We're coming all together with different tools so that in terms of the branches and all that, people will be aware of the type of activities that are going on, the type of people who are engaged in that. So the whole objective actually is to make our community safer. And I can tell you, if you were with us here this morning in Mississauga, you would have seen from the city councilor, from the different local representative community leaders, this is very much welcome.
Wouldn't calling out India, though, increase the ability to make those communities safer? That is my sort of underlying question, Minister.
Listen, I'll leave that to the intelligence officers and the police force, or those who combat crime. Like I said, my role is to provide them more tools in the toolbox. These tools are very much needed. And like I said, there's already the RCMP as a network that they talk to people internationally, because we know that these crimes have a transnational nature, but they're also related to gang activities, which is a very domestic issue as well. So I'll leave it to really law enforcement officers, but you would appreciate that when it comes to operational details of the operation that are going to be conducted, it would not be wise for me to expand on how we're going to be doing that.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note. Minister, appreciate your time as always. Thank you so much. Safe travels.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me, and see you soon.